Yeah, let's take questions about for whomever, whatever, and
please.
ideas about the.
Say your name so we all know each other.
My name is Walter.
Hello, Walter.
Actually, PG County, but it's close enough.
Very close.
I have a question for the audience and for you, because I've been through this too many times. I remember it, very similar things happened in the Vietnam War and other wars and civil rights. This is not new. It may change brand. It may change the names of the organization. What is new is two things, and someone asked me a question about what you think about this. One is that they've upgraded the technology and the techniques. They're much more sophisticated than they used to be. And because they couldn't get away with stuff they had heavy-handed 30, 40, 50 years ago. Two, they have more money. And what I see, and the last question that we put out about a rapid response, my question is to this audience, is there anyone here that is new to this? Is anyone here that didn't know this stuff in general already? That's a general question. And two, if what you're trying to do is to get a practical organizational response, that question is still relevant because behind all this is what will the public do when you claim any of these things? When you write an article, when you go before a crowd, a church, a community organization, you say, these bad, crazy things are happening, even activists don't have to be persuaded. But people who've been through it don't have to be persuaded. But ordinary people don't want to believe that this is true. So not only do you have to have a rapid response in terms of doing something that gets attention and stops the process, you have to have a response that takes into account, in my opinion, the fact that the general public doesn't want to believe that this is true. It's scary. And the last thing I want to say is I've been doing some work around environmental stuff, and some of you may know that there's been a debate in the last year or so, sort of philosophic, political, strategic debate, whether or not the public needs to be scared into getting active enough to prevent catastrophic climate changes. And the argument goes back and forth. We want to organize people so we don't want to scare them away. But wait a minute, if you don't, that's like saying you can wait for the bus, don't worry, you'll get there, the bus will wait forever for you. Well, for some things, the bus won't wait forever. Maybe civil liberty is a little bit more, we have a little more time, I don't know. But we do have to, I think we have to take into account these two sides of this. One is that there's almost nothing new in what's happening. It's part of the system. They have the money, they have to spend it, so to speak. Two is, how do we reach people who don't want to believe that it's real?
Well, would you like to take that, any of you, or should we open it up to the comments?
Something I'd like to comment, but go ahead.
Well, I would say the new thing is that when after the break-in in Media, Pennsylvania, and COINTELPRO was exposed, Congress was outraged, the public was outraged, and now we expose these things all the time, and Congress doesn't give a damn, and the public doesn't believe it. And so that's a really good question. How do we convince them?
I gotta say though, that because I knew some of the people who were raised in the Midwest, I went to school with them, that there was more support in Chicago and Minneapolis than I would have actually expected in community people. Hundreds of people showing up outside the FBI building in Chicago and saying we support them for not, participating in this grand jury. And so I don't know if it was just activists. I think you're addressing the issue of broader community people who aren't there. But there was a lot of churches, and I think that sometimes even though peace churches are, friendly to anti-war kinds of concerns, they aren't in the thick of all of these civil liberties issues. I think there's certainly work to be done, but I think it might be better than we imagine, because I think that people don't like the idea of people's homes being raided. I think that's where we have an entree point. Tom, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to respond that I think something that might be different about what we're suggesting is that when something happens locally, to get a group of local people together about it and protest at the district court and get in touch with the Montgomery Gazette and talk to the Washington Post and be a local group organizing about a local issue of this sort is different. I think that's not the same old of ACLU and CCR issue a press release from New York saying that this is bad. Instead, it's local people trying to do something about the local issue in a way that should be fresh and would be able to speak, use the symbols that we know about, use the venues that we know about, reach out in different ways. I think it could be different, even though it feels like it would. We know that this is happening a lot. I think that what people would be surprised about was seeing a local action about an event of this sort.
I think things are changing. I mean, I really do. I really feel it, like, the Rand Paul filibuster. That was such a high-profile thing. And the right wing. There is people like us on the left, and then we agree on these issues with people on the right. And there's almost like you can see a coalition starting to build. There's a huge number of people now who are, drones. No, it's not something that happens here in America. But there's outrage now about drones, and a lot of these things, CISPA, like the internet laws they tried to pass.
Just passed.
SOPA, yeah, I know. But there's a lot of people pissed. It passed the House. But Obama said he's going to veto it, right?
He said it.
Well,
Unless changes are made.
Right.
That's what NPR said.
Well, I mean, there's SOPA and CISPA, and there's these things which are not just our community, not just our civil liberties community, that have sort of caught the imagination of the whole country. And it seems like if the Republican Party is going to have a resurgence, maybe they'll dump all the bigots, and maybe one of its resurgent wing will be a civil liberty wing. And frankly, the Republican civil liberties wing is better than the Democratic wing, civil liberties.
At least while Obama's president.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the opposition, you can talk about civil liberties.
Right.
Max and the woman in a hat.
One thing I wanted to address what you said. I've been trying fruitlessly to get the environmental movement to connect with the anti-war movement. I haven't succeeded yet, but I tried. If I go and speak to any college campus in Baltimore, there are no peace groups on the campuses, but there are environmental groups. And eventually, who knows when, but eventually climate chaos is going to move people off of their lawn chairs. The example right now is Sandy. It would happen where, as I understand, there are places like Rockaway Beach that still don't even have electricity. And so that, I think, is going to seep into their consciousness. And the flip side of the coin is the military spending is bankrupting cities all around the country. Baltimore, I could give you many examples. It's happening. If I've been trying desperately to go after the NPR station in Baltimore, I go to all the meetings to get them to start covering wars and the connection with poverty. Baltimore has the highest poverty rate in the state of Maryland. It's 1 of 4 families are below poverty. So if we can keep working on those issues, the military budget and climate chaos, I think we can get more people involved. I do not have the same feeling you have, because to me, Congress, we have the best Congress money can buy. I mean, this recent 56 people in the Senate on the gun control, it's just outrageous. And then Rand Paul calls the parents of the children, the dead children, call them props. I don't know what could be more insulting with them. So those are just some of the things. This was done by the AFSC in 1979. There's a chapter here about the Baltimore Red Squads. This particular book, some of you in the room will remember Sammy Abbott, the mayor of Tacoma Park. He's in this book about his subversive activities, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, these things have been going on. They're more sophisticated, and I don't know if this happened in the past, but I don't know this use of taking these poor kids and and bringing somebody into influence. Now, I know you folks just showed the movie, which is a fabulous film.
The better this world.
Yeah, and these two kids that got coerced were pretty sophisticated.
Well,
they were kids though.
They're kind of new to the activist.
They were
It's a
kids,
similar story
and
to
they were
what was
influenced.
told.
They were influenced by Darby to to do so. But usually they go after somebody with some kind of problem and coerce them into doing this, especially when they become the informants. I don't know if this happened as much in the future, in the past, as it's been happening, because we could just go right down the line. The conference that took place in Albany 2 years ago, we marched to support the people up in Albany, the Muslims up in Albany that were in prison for just doing social justice activities. So.
But yeah, I think that's what we're trying to set up with this rapid response center. Exactly those kinds of things where we respond to infiltration or bad prosecutions. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I have, what I've been trying to figure out lately is if there's any rules around infiltrating and informing. Like, just as a recent example, like last week. So there's two guys who go to the nonviolence training with SOA Watch. And then they go out in the street and they start saying they're with SOA Watch and they start flyering everybody. And you start asking them questions and they don't shit about anything with, Central America and military. I mean, they really don't know anything except they'll give you an explanation of drug cartels because that's what they know. And I'm like, okay, can you do that? I mean, you know what I mean? Like they're literally handing out, we're with SOA Watch and blah, 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 blah. We're not even talking about, oh, we're gonna set people up for, some quote unquote terrorist activity. Just pretending.
You don't know that they're necessarily informers or
But informers can't lie.
And there's
Okay.
they don't even
there's-
have any suspicion that anybody's doing anything wrong. There are no rules. Oh, well, we don't know the rules because they're redacted.
Okay, well,
But they don't need to have any suspicion that any crime is about to be committed for them to send
But I want to make a plea that I think it's really important that the left does not engage with people who seem a little off and they get snitch jackets. It's really important because, no, I'm just saying, I think it's like, I know that's not what you're saying, but I think it's important to assert because it's so easy for the movement to fragment by having people who may have some mental disturbances being accused.
fairly clear, okay, I actually watched this. And having been around, having seen this multiple times, some of us are not, we're like, wow, that's good. Okay, anyway, but related to that, also heard that if it's being run out of the Capitol Police, you can't FOIA anything, you can't really find out anything.
You're dry.
You
That's right,
see what I'm
'cause
saying?
Congress
So
is
like you're
exempt
saying
from
it's
FOIA, yeah.
redacted, it's for some agencies, nobody can slap a FOIA on you, so you can't find it out anyway, so everything gets run out of that agency. I'm asking a whole bunch of questions around, so what's the boundaries?
Sometimes whatever they can get away with, right? I mean, unfortunately, that's historically been the case, and this may get exposed and they can get slapped down. I think Martina's going to add.
Well, I was just going to make a point. I think that, is it true that the only test before the Supreme Court was Holder versus humanitarian law, where they equated speech with material support?
I think that's a separate issue than what we're
No,
addressing.
what my question is, I'm taking her question, I'm adding another question on top. Does anybody know in this area what has been tested at the Supreme Court in terms of either what is the definition of terrorism, and I'm looking at the Holder versus humanitarian law case in that area, versus what kinds of infiltration are permitted or are crossing over a violation of our free speech constitutional amendment. Has any of that been tested at the Supreme Court, or was that all handled by Congress and COINTELPRO?
There's a lot of questions in there. So
Yeah.
the terrorist thing, I think one of the reasons that Obama didn't come out on Monday and say terrorism right away is because there's like a whole case law or legal, there's legal definitions, international law that govern that. So let's put that one aside.